Welcome to the Bloom, week 2.
Episode 2, I'm super excited. This is a good one, Tori. We were
Yeah.
already just crying before we press go live talking about
Yeah.
this.
A little emotional.
We are, but it's a good one. It's for a good reason. This is a really good episode. Um, yeah, Casey and I were just talking this morning about how some people are really good at preparing and some people are really good at executing, but like there's not a lot of people that are really good at both.
Yeah.
I'm really excited. But you should
Yeah,
kick us
this
off.
would be
Tell
good.
us our topic.
This will be such a good episode for that, and how cool that you guys were talking about that too. It's like
Yeah.
it's aligned.
It is. It is. Except
Yeah.
that podcast episode is going to go out in a few weeks, so I feel like a double whammy.
Amazing.
Kick us off, Tori.
So
What are we talking about today?
let's do it. So today we're talking through the month of January. We're going to be talking about the power of preparation. And today we're talking specifically about how preparation helps you define or find your purpose, and how just in the midst of preparing, we really get to decide what's important. And so I'm very excited about the conversations that we're going to have today. Just about how our goals line up with the things that we have prepared for, and um, the things that we push to the side as well. So, on that note, Kelly, I have a question for you.
Okay, hit me.
Okay, and I think I know the answer to this one already, but I'm going to ask it anyway.
Okay.
Have you ever gone into something and felt utterly unprepared?
Okay. I'm gonna have to think about this because I don't think I have.
I feel like you're the preparation queen. I don't think you
But
have.
I can think. I can think. Yeah, actually, I actually had a really tough conversation with one of my principals when I was teaching, and I was unprepared for the turn of events that happened within that conversation. You know this about me. I have to think everything through. I don't think very well on the fly, so probably no, I haven't. But that conversation was, I went in to quit. It was when I resigned, right when I retired from teaching, and it didn't go over well. I thought I was being really sweet and kind and like quitting with dignity and grace, and um, she didn't receive it in the loving way that I intended it. She was very upset that I was not coming back the following year. Um, and yeah, I just didn't do very well, but it caused me I didn't handle the dynamics of that conversation, but I will say it caused me to really think through like future conflicts and how I want to handle them. So I don't know if I've ever like dived into something on purpose without being prepared, but I have. That's like the one thing I can think of where I was really like grossly unprepared to handle how that conversation went. I was like really young and I just didn't know what to do. But I feel like I want to ask you that question because I feel like maybe the answer is different.
Like maybe it is. While you're this planned and prepared, I think that's what I love so much about doing power sheets,
Mm.
is because I used to literally just jump into goals. I would set these crazy big goals and I would just jump in completely unprepared and then fail miserably at them because I
Really?
like just had no idea. I didn't prepare for obstacles that would come my way or what resources I might need. And so I feel like I did that pretty frequently. And I kind of love though the beauty of you can learn through preparation, but there's also some beauty that comes from like learning from being
Yeah.
unprepared. I
Yeah.
would much
100%.
rather now at this stage in my life learn from being prepared. I feel
Yeah,
like
age definitely with age comes wisdom. But I do think
yeah.
that there's a lot of value in the way that you were approaching goals. And I love this about your personality because you can't prepare for every obstacle. Like if you're trying to
Right, yeah.
prepare for everything, like sometimes preparedness can be like a safe harbor. And I can see like we have
Mm.
tons of cultivators who do their power sheets and they plan everything and they never execute it. Ever. Like, they like, "Oh, I'm so
Mhm.
prepared, I can do the prep work," but executing it, getting it done, that's a totally different story for lots of women, and then we
Yeah.
have the other side of the aisle where they're like, "I kinda skim through the prep work, but I really like to get into the actual action items." So I feel like there's, like, a delicate
Mhm.
balance, honestly, because you can over prepare to the point that if
Oh,
something
for
comes up
sure.
that you don't know, it's not on your power sheets, you're like, "Oh, well, I'm I'm done.
Yep.
Yeah, it totally threw
I
me.
was actually reading about this yesterday. Um, Gosh, I cannot remember where it was, but it was talking about like being in motion versus taking action.
Yeah.
I think it's from Atomic Habits.
Oh,
Um,
no, I don't remember.
but I can't remember. But it was basically saying that like a lot of people spend time in motion. You know, they're
Mhm.
preparing, they're doing good things, but they're not actually taking action that will lead to results. And so I think that that is where what we're going to talk about today will be really powerful because yes, we need to take that time to prepare, but we need to use that time to prepare, define what matters, and then, which we will talk about, taking that next step. How do we do that?
I love that.
So,
I think I told maybe I don't think it was last week on the Bloom. I think it may have been Troy, I'm getting all of our conversations mixed up. It may have been on TLT, but I read a story once about this plane that went down in the jungle region of South America. I think maybe it was Africa. Did I tell you about this?
I don't think so.
Okay, it was a 16-year-old there was a 16-year-old girl in on the plane. Basically, the plane went down, crashed, and her seat was ejected and was, like, 5 miles from the rest of the crew.
Wow.
So but it's very sad what happened. Basically, she lived, and she was looking for she, like, got up. She's like, "Well, I can't stay here by myself in the jungle. I'm gonna have to walk and find water, find shelter, find something." So she walked and walked and walked and walked and walked and ended up finding a cabin, and she hid there or slept there or something until rescue crews came to look for their plane. Well, they found everybody else from the plane together, huddled together, passed away. And yeah, and so they had, like, been journaling, like, about what happened, how many days they were there. They wrote down so it was cool because you had both perspectives
Hmm.
of people who stayed in one place and then the girl who decided to move and act. So, she was looking for help, and they were waiting for somebody to come rescue them. That was their plan. "We're gonna wait here for someone to come find us, someone to come rescue us." But then people started passing away, they started it was just it's sorta like their inaction sort of became their demise because
Hmm.
they didn't do anything. They just waited. And so the military actually, one of my friends is in the Marines, and he said that the military actually taught them about this as a cautionary tale to them in case they're ever in a situation like that. Because what they teach them is that swift, certain action beats inaction, beats the perfect plan. So basically, if you're in a crisis
Wow.
situation, something swift and certain is a better plan of action than having like the perfect plan that's executed too slowly. And I find that really interesting because my dad always told me, "No one ever regrets a decision they made too slowly." Like, my dad
Mm-hmm.
always told us this, "You're never gonna regret something that you thought about, prayed about, planned for, like, that's the right way to do it." But when I learned about this other thing being just, like, executed, you gotta have a plan, it just doesn't have to be the perfect plan.
Yeah.
A bad
And I feel
plan
like that's how
yeah.
I grew up was
Oh, really?
take motion for like move
Yeah.
forward and make mistakes and learn from your mistakes and keep going.
Well, that
Like,
makes sense, your dad's in the military.
yeah. And so that's very interesting in how now we live our lives and set goals. Interesting.
It's very interesting, and I'm super glad we're talking about this too because I'm a preparer. This is
Mhm.
like my sweet spot.
So then, Kelly, since you're the preparing queen, tell us specifically this year. I know you've been doing power sheets for a really long time. I want you to tell us what you learned this year or what you are learning this year from preparing for 2024. Because
Um,
do you think that you're still learning about yourself even now that you've done prep work however many times?
that's a really good question. Yes. So last year, I've said this before, last year was my best power sheets year ever. It was my 6th year using power sheets, I think. Um, and I actually like hold on. My computer went off. I actually accomplished all my goals. I didn't have
Yay!
anything yeah, I know, like, shocker. I didn't have anything lingering at the end of the year.
Mhm.
Normally, I have 1 or 2 things where I'm like, "Oh, I didn't make it on this," or "I didn't get as" excuse me, "I didn't get as close as I wanted." Um, but let me tell you what I did. It has to do with preparation. I was religious about my quarterly refreshes. So every quarter,
Mm.
I was, like, looking at all my goals, readjusting my plan, removing my mini goals. I just was very fluid with my plan. So I
Love
planned
that.
really well at the beginning of the year in 2022 and I was getting ready for 2023. But I didn't. necessarily keep that plan all year long, and I'm trying to do the same thing with 2024. I made a solid plan, I set mini goals, I, um I basically kinda took the 12-week years advice, and I said, "I'm gonna have, like, what goals am I gonna reach in the next 12 weeks, the next
Mhm.
quarter?" Um, but when the quarterly refresh comes, I'm gonna be willing to change my plan if I need to.
What a great way to align, like, make sure you stay aligned with your purpose. Because I feel like a lot of times we set great goals and we have a great plan and we put them into action,
Mhm.
but we veer off from the reason
Yeah.
why we're doing them.
Yeah, I think so
I
you
love
asked me
that.
about does my prep work help me identify I don't remember the whole question that you asked me, but this is interesting, Tori. The things that I set I'm gonna, like, repose the question to you, but the things that I've set as my goals haven't really changed much. Like, the core of who I am has stayed the same year after year after year. I love my career, so I'm always trying to learn and grow there. I love books, reading. I love my family. I love health and wellness. Like I've always had the same kind of goals, but what I learned through the prep work, preparing for the year, I guess, is and we've talked about this before, but it's mostly just like what that means to me in this season. So there
Mhm.
was a time when my family looked differently. Like I told you last week, my grandpa passed away. And so, it like this going forward in the future is my grandmother is like a front and center star of my family goal because I know my time with her is running out. And I know that she doesn't have the same commitments that she had before. So she's got free
Right.
time. I don't know. I feel like my goals and who I am have not changed, but what power sheets in the preparation process have uncovered in me is maybe a different way of going about them than I thought
Mhm.
I would go about them. But I'm curious the same thing for you, like, what have you learned about yourself through the prep work process?
I have learned, gosh, I feel like I learn a little bit more about myself every year that I do it. I think this year the big thing that I'm learning is resilience. Like, so a lot of what my goals have to do with this year are basically picking back up old goals that I had to set aside because of XYZ
Yeah.
and remembering, um, the lessons that I learned and what God taught me through them and how strong I was and that I can be that again. Um, and so I think that, but I'm also learning that I'm learning a lot about myself in the fact that, like, I'm not doing I had this epiphany the other day. I'm not necessarily doing things that I love and I don't know why. Like there's some things that I love to do that I'm like, why am I not doing those?
That's so
And
good.
they're in my prep work. They're in the what fires me
Yeah.
up, but I just didn't move them over into my goals. And so I'm kind of like thinking, because that's how we define our purpose, right? Why were we created? What fires us up? What gets
Yeah.
us excited? Because we all have that something. And so I'm kind of considering now, um, maybe making some mini goals or some quarterly goals. I'm not sure, but just to incorporate some of those things that I love that make me excited, which this may be a really silly one, Kelly, but
No.
today on my way to work, I was listening to show tunes and I was just like belting out show tunes in my car. And it makes me so happy. I used to do theater. I love singing. And I'm like, I had this whole, like, existential crisis in the car of, like, why as an adult do we not do those things? Like, kids do those things,
Mhm.
and we
Mhm.
don't. And
We
so I
don't
think
play.
that's what preparation is teaching me this year, and I also wanna put this caveat in real quick that it's mid-January now, and I'm still preparing for my year. I think that we have this misconception, and we talked a little bit about it on TL that we have to have everything figured out by the 1st of January. And really, I'm using January this year as my month to try things on and see what feels good and what doesn't. And then I'll move forward with intentionality the rest of the year.
I love that you said that. Also, hi, Lisa. I'm so sorry that you have COVID. I'm so
Hi,
sorry.
Lisa.
I love that you said you're trying it on to see what feels good. That's another thing. So this podcast that Casey and I recorded this morning is about big dreams. And we were talking
Mm,
about how in the same sense you're saying that, which is so cool that we're all feeling the same exact way at the same time.
good.
We were talking about how as you get older, you start to know yourself
Hmm.
and you start to realize I like show tunes. And I'm not doing that because I'm filling up my time with all these other things. But when you start to allow yourself to understand what your gifts are, or the way that your personality works, or the way that you like to do things, it's so freeing. Hi, Elska. It's so freeing because you're like, "Oh," she was talking about how she feels really run down in the wintertime because it gets dark early. And so she was like, I don't try to set off in January and press towards my goals. I like to take it slow. And I'm learning that it's okay if I'm taking it slow in January when everybody else is pressing forward."
Oh, how freeing. Like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh. Yeah. Oh no. Kelly. I don't know where Kelly went. But yeah,
Here, I'm here.
I
Can you hear
oh,
me?
there you are. Yeah,
Sorry,
there
I
you
have
are.
my little light on. I feel like my internet is patchy. It's stormy here in Florida. So sorry.
I know
Yeah,
round 2 is on its way.
I know. I was thinking about that with what you said though about your show tunes and stuff, and how the preparation process revealed some things that you love that you're not doing.
Mhm.
Because when you and when you have that epiphany, I love this, but I'm not doing it. Everyone else is racing, but I like to rest. When you have that epiphany about yourself, it's like now you can move forward in the way that you should go because you spent the time preparing and thinking and planning. And yeah, I think it's really cool. I love that you just discovered this about yourself. But I have a question, Tori. Why aren't you doing that more?
I don't know. I think honestly, if I'm gonna get like super very real and vulnerable here, I think
Do
that I put a lot of things on the shelf when Matt got
Mhm.
sick
Yeah.
because like that was my primary focus was one keeping him alive and two trying to maintain some sense of normalcy for my kids.
Mm,
And I think I had kind of given myself this timeline of like, I should be back to normal by now. Well, two things. One, I'm never going to be back to normal. Like, life's never going to be the same. And two, it's taken a lot longer to grow from that than I expected. Like, I feel like I'm just now to the point where I can start picking back up old habits and doing things for myself, like getting back in the gym. And I think I had just kind of set that stuff aside because it takes time that I felt like I
mhm,
needed to dedicate
mhm,
elsewhere. I don't know. I feel I feel like through preparation this year, I'm learning so much about my reasoning behind why I do things and why I set the goals that I set. So it'll be a really interesting month because I'm really giving myself permission to um, put goals away if I set them and I'm not feeling great about them
I love
after
that.
a couple weeks. So, yeah.
I love that. I love what you said. You said, I'm gonna repeat what you said. You said, um, well, no, it like slipped my mind. It was, I'm gonna summarize. It was basically that you kind of set aside everything that you personally wanted for yourself in order to facilitate your husband's health when he got sick. That was a big thing. And then also to keep your kids like going. And I feel like, Tori, I feel like so many women can say that, even if their husband didn't have cancer. By the way, if you're listening and you want to hear that story, that's in episode one. Tori shared a lot about that then. And then I feel like there's a lot of ways that people can have trauma or crisis. And you talked about how you've given yourself
Mhm.
time to work through it and you did not jump back into it immediately. And I love that so much because we put so much pressure on ourselves to get back to the swing of things. Like, oh,
Mhm.
okay, we got a good report, so we're back to normal. But that's just not how it is. You
Right.
have to work through the things that have happened to you in your life, like whether that's a terrible diagnosis or a scary experience or a heartbreak or any whatever it may be. You have to give yourself time to work through those things. And I love that about power sheets because I'm willing to bet that a lot of your goals, even though you're picking them back up, I'm willing to bet that some of them have shifted, or at least your why
Oh,
has
yeah.
shifted.
A million percent. And I think that's something really important to note is that when things like that happen, when we go through a
Mhm.
dip season, we think like, oh, it affected this area, but really it affects all areas.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
have to consider not only the one area you think it affected, but how it changed your life in other capacities. And so, yeah, a lot of my goals this year, I feel like have taken on they've kind of taken on a new life of, um, even though they maintain a lot of the same why, some of them are even
Mhm.
deeper or completely shifted, which is really cool because, sometimes I feel like people have been using power sheets for a while, think, "Oh, well, I've done the prep work. I can just skip
Mhm.
over this part and move right in."
Yeah.
And I in my opinion, doing it every year helps me really establish my purpose for why I want to move forward on these specific goals.
Me
While
too.
I know what matters, it's those little things that you uncover, like the show tunes, which seems
Yeah.
silly, but it's, do I need to lay aside something else so I can take voice lessons? Or,
I
just
love
those
that.
little tiny things that you can tweak that make your goals feel so much more intentional.
I love that you said that. Also, I don't know if you're this way. I'm gonna ask you this. Speaking of being vulnerable, I'm gonna be really vulnerable
Okay.
and ask you if you feel this way. So sometimes for me, those things like those little things that bring me a lot of
Mhm.
joy. I plan them, I do them, I don't savor them.
Yes.
I'm like, "Oh, I love painting," and so I set up a paint night with my friends at, like, Sips and Strokes or whatever it is. So
So
I'm like,
fun.
it's so fun, right? I love that, and it's not, like, totally artsy because they tell you what to do, but, um
Yeah.
oh, by the way, don't let me forget, Kayla asked how old your kids are, so we can go into the kid roots, after this. I don't want it to go away. So I the day of Sips and Strokes, it comes, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I gotta get to the Amazon returns. I gotta get to the hair girl. I gotta get it," and I'm like, "Time to go," and I'm like, "Oh, I'm tired. I had a long day. Now I gotta go do this
Yeah.
thing." And then while I'm there, I'm having a good time. Everything's great. And then afterwards, I'm like, okay, gotta call my mom. I got my pickup orders in 5 minutes. And it just like came and went. This thing that I had written in my power sheets that I put on my calendar that I took time to plan. I planned it. I did it. I didn't savor it. And I don't know if
Ah,
you're that way, but it's like are you that way sometimes?
yeah, for sure, because you have so many things that you wanna get done or accomplish or that you need to check off, and almost some of our big dreams turn into checklists, like, we take
Yes,
them out of our brain, we put them in our power sheets, and we're like, "Alright, gotta check it off,"
I did it.
and we
Yeah.
forget how special it is. I love that you called attention to that because I feel like that's really common.
I don't know. It may be a little crazy. I was telling myself during the thing, I was like, you are having fun right now. Recognize this is what fun
You wanted this.
well, no, I was having fun. I just wanted to name it and say, like,
Yeah.
remember, this is fun. You don't have to do this perfectly. It's just for fun. Laugh, pay attention to your friends, ask good questions. Basically, just be present in that fun
Yeah.
experience because otherwise, I'm like checking my phone. I'm like, I don't know. I feel like I can just make things into a checklist and forget that it's just for fun.
This makes me I'm gonna challenge you to something, and I want us
Okay.
to do it together.
Okay.
This is totally unprepared, guys, so you're gonna get Kelly's full reaction
I
here.
gotta like sip
Um,
my coffee before this is
I think we need to I don't know what, even if it's just like an everyday notebook, some kind of little journal. We need to allow ourselves time before things like that we've set out for fun. Allow ourselves time before to just like sit in it and kind of name what our expectations are. And then when we're done, we need to give ourselves time afterwards to write down why we loved it, why it was special.
I love
Because then I think that's
that.
going to help us to savor it more. And I know I need that in my life because I tend to like move from one thing to the next and I just got to get things done. And I'm not taking enough time to really savor and be
I
present
love
in those
that.
moments.
I love that. I will
Want to
totally
take
take
down the
on that challenge.
challenge?
Yeah, I love that challenge. I will
Okay.
take it on. That is my problem with preparation. This is the dark side of preparation. We're talking about how preparation can really be powerful in knowing your purpose, but this is the dark side of preparation because I feel
Mhm.
like my purpose in life is to be a person who gives hope and encouragement to people. So
Mm.
I schedule this thing, like I said, I go and then I'm like the whole time, not the purpose. you know, I planned this thing for my purpose didn't to my purpose because I got so caught up in productivity. And I love that you are talking about reorienting your heart
Yeah.
around something. I love that. I will take your challenge.
It's almost that same idea. I don't know, I feel like we've talked about it before. It may have been in a GSP class, but I
We've talked about it somewhere.
in we did marriage counseling, and the pastor said to us, you really have to like set boundaries around the things you're doing, especially life and work. And so he gave this scenario where there was a lamp post on his way home from work. And so when he was on his way home from work, he thought about work until he hit that lamp post.
Yeah,
When he got to the lamp post, he started thinking about home. And then he did the same thing on the way there. He thought about home, he got to the lamp post, he shifted into work. And I feel like we don't allow ourselves to do that enough. We kind of let
yeah.
all of our tasks bleed into one another.
That
And I feel like this might help us to just get our mind oriented around what our heart really wants out of a situation.
I love that you said that too. We definitely are not good. Women are especially not good at boundaries in that way. That's what they say,
Mhm.
like, women are like spaghetti and men are like waffles. Have you heard that?
No,
Yeah, because
I've
men are
never
like
heard that.
yeah, totally, and you know it's true. Men are like, "Hey, by the way, tonight we're having dinner
Yes.
with so and so," and you're like, "Tonight?" And they're like, "Yeah, tonight." And you're like, "Why didn't you tell me? Because I would have rearranged my entire day or my entire week." Like, yeah, we're constantly
Yes.
thinking about everything all at once, and men are just like,
That's
I
so
have to
funny
work."
because I tell my husband this all the time. I'm like, I have to do brrr, like my brain
Yeah,
is thinking about brrr all day long,
yeah.
and you're thinking about your work meeting. Like he just can
How?
compartmental. I don't know. I don't know. I'm it's
How
like a
do they do
magic
it?
trick. I don't
It
know.
is totally a magic trick. How do they do it? I need answers.
Yeah. Cause he's like, "Why?" He'll be like, "Why are," in a very kind, loving way,
Yeah,
"Why are you feeling so overwhelmed?" And I'm like, "Because."
yeah.
And he's like, "But we're having dinner." And I'm like, "You're having dinner. I'm planning bedtime."
I'm having a panic attack. No, that's so true, Tori. I love
Oh
that.
gosh, yeah.
But your
So
challenge is really a way of compartmentalizing because you're
mhm.
saying, like, I love the advice to write your way out of a dilemma. If your brain
Yeah.
is feeling flustered and overwhelmed, you can write your way out of it. So I love your
Mhm.
challenge. It's basically like saying, stop thinking about everything else and set your expectations and start thinking about this thing that really matters to you. You wrote it in your power sheets. It brings you joy. It mattered enough to write it down when you were preparing for the year. So pause everything else and actually enjoy what you've prepared to do because this is the
Yeah,
thing that really matters. And so it matters that your mind and your heart are right about it. I love that. And it's a form of preparation
it
to
is.
yeah, I love that, Tori. That's
And
so
I
cool. I'm
think
gonna do that.
to tie it all back in, it helps remind us of our purpose. We're preparing to take action based on the purpose that we set out for. And I don't think it needs to be because I'm sitting here thinking, okay, how am I going to do it? I may just pull out my notes in my phone, honestly, and just
Yeah.
give myself a minute to just, okay, I want to be present. That's something that's really important to
Mhm.
me. And so and that means in our tasks.
Mhm.
I am excited, Kelly.
That's so cool. We have to keep each other accountable.
Okay, I have one more
Yeah.
question for you. You ready?
Well, yeah, so can you hold it one
Oh,
second? Because I want you to answer
yes.
Kayla. How old are your kids?
Oh, yeah. Okay, so I have 2 daughters. One is 9 and one is 5. She'll be 6 in March,
They're so cute
and
too.
they are a hoot and a holler. They're so funny.
They're so fun.
We were just talking in the office. I have to share this story and then we can get back on track. But we were talking in the office the other day because I was trying to explain Everly to people. Everly is her own like special character. She's hilarious. And I was telling them the girl knows what she wants and she's not afraid to tell people what she wants. And I was telling him a story. I don't remember. I guess it was probably about a year ago. She told me we're in the car, and she said, "I want you to call me Crispy Anna, Crispy Anna." And I, I said, "What?" And she said, "I don't like the name Everly. I will. I want to be Crispy Anna." And she would not answer to anything but Crispy Anna. And I would be on the phone, like talking to my mom, and say, Everly, blah, 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 like telling her about something Everly do. And from the other room, she'd be like, "It's Crispiana." I
Don't you love the fun and innocence of kids?
I do.
Yeah.
And I love her boldness. Like I think as we get older, we kind of let that
Yeah.
die because I don't know what we're afraid of. She's just so bold about what she wants and why she wants it, and
Awesome.
she'll go after it.
I love that. I love that.
Crispy Anna.
I love that. Okay, Tori, let's wrap it up for today. Final
All right.
parting thoughts.
Okay. Final parting thoughts. I would say that I think a lot of people get really confused when it comes to finding their purpose. And I just want to offer these words of encouragement that I think the easiest way to find your purpose, if you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know why I'm doing things, is to sit down and think about what is it that makes you excited about life? What brings you joy? What does your heart ache for? What are the things that are important to you? And that is your purpose, because we each have different things that are that for us. And we need each of us to live out those things that matter to us. So take some time and really think about that. What about you,
I
Kelly?
love that. Yeah, I'm gonna piggyback off that and give some encouragement to those people who are really good at preparing, but
Mhm.
not so good at executing. And just say that I know we talked about this last week, but I really am convicted that the things that matter to us now today are just going to keep
Mhm.
mattering and mattering more because our time on earth is shrinking with every day, and that time as it shrinks becomes more and more and more valuable. And so
Mhm.
um, if you are feeling overwhelmed, or if you're feeling like you don't know where to begin, or like you have all these dreams and thoughts in your heart and your mind, like Tori said, write it down. You can get power sheets. They're awesome. It's like a workbook in the beginning. You can't like mess it up. It'll help you work through all this. But you can also just take a piece of paper and write down the things that really matter to you, and then like literally plan it out. I will tell you the story really quick before we go. Tori, you know that one of my big dream goals was to improve or to cultivate the relationships with the women in my family.
Mhm.
So my grandpa passed away last week, and I told you that the grandgirls took turns spending the night every night with my grandmother. And so she wouldn't have to sleep alone. She and my papa were married 67 years. They got married when she was 19. So it was just a big change for her. And Tori, I thought to myself, when I set this goal, there's no finish line for this. I'm just doing something that's eternal. That's a legacy minded thing. And I planned
Mhm.
to call my grandmother every week, to be more intentional about text, and even something as silly as just liking Facebook posts, like
Yeah.
commenting, something that's we just kind of don't do anymore because we're in this like scroll culture, you know.
Mhm.
I've been trying really hard to be more intentional about reaching out. And I'm not perfect. Like I think I forgot every birthday this year. Like I'm pretty sure I forgot like every single birthday. Um, but I was looking at my family all sitting around, my mom, my sisters, my cousins, and I was thinking like there is an end point to all of our goals. There's an end point. And I'm so grateful that I took the time to plan calls and texts and literally just
Mhm.
put them on my power sheets. Call grandmother every week, call Katie, call my mom, call them every week. I'm so grateful that I took the time to plan that out because it did seem like there was a punctuation mark on that goal that I thought wasn't there. And when we needed those good family relationships to be there, they were. And I was just, I don't know, it made me look back over the last year and be really grateful for the time that I spent working towards that goal.
Yeah.
So I guess my encouragement is if you are a person who is really good at preparing because you love doing your prep work, but then you tend to kind of like let it slide, just keep up with it. Plan something doable, plan something small, and then savor it. And savor it. You plan for it, savor it. There's power in preparation because it identifies what matters, helps you identify what matters to you. It helps you make what matters actionable. Sometimes we are all in our heads and we have all these things swimming around, and preparation puts it into action. So
Mhm.
prepare and
Which
then
we're
do
going to
it.
talk about.
Yes, we are. Next
I
week.
love that. It was like a great little segue into we will be talking about this month how preparation helps you take action. Because I know today we talked a lot about the kind of, I don't know, intangible side of preparation, and so we want to help you also get tangible with it and actually take action. So this is oh, I already am so in love with this time, and I look forward to it so much because these are real conversations that I think are really important to have, and we don't have enough of them anymore. So hopefully
Totally
we
agree
can.
with you. I totally agree with you. Okay, we are all done out of time for today. We reached our 30-minute mark, but thank you so much for coming. Katie, good luck with your goal for cultivating family relationships. one of my favorites too. It was a good use of my time. Thank you all so much for joining us. Tori, as always, best time of my week. I love chatting with you so much.
I love chatting with you too. It's always a pleasure.
I know I gotta get my little ring light off here. Can't wait to see you next week. Oh my goodness.
Woo! It's
We're
a
ending
party.
today's I didn't even know I could do that. We're ending today's chat with a disco party.
Little rave.
That's what you get when you go live. Thank you, Tori. I can't wait to see you next week, as always. Bye, everyone. We'll see you
Bye,
next week.
bye.
Bye.